I don't know why, but when I walked on stage, I walked up those stairs and I started thinking, Alvin, Simon, Theodore. Wow.
No, you can't do the Schumann voice. Maybe you can, but we can't. Get some tighter pants for that one.
Well, this is it, guys. This is night number 5.
Glad to know you're excited to hear the album tonight. Wow.
So this was not enough Hanson for you? 5?
10 of 10!
Okay, all right.
10 of 10.
10 of 10. Well,
You know what's really great about
That's
what
a
you
great
just
idea.
said?
Well, 15 years from now.
Yes!
We'll be there if you will. Honestly, I don't know, 10 of 10. We might have to take a week off in between. Okay, I'm going to stop videoing because hello.
It's a little obnoxious. So who here has shouted out? Just making sure.
I just had this moment. It was like 3 people raising their hand. I'm like, why are you here? So tonight is, like Zach said, the final night of the story and the final night of the album. Look, hey, we made it this long. We'll be back.
the good thing is we were actually talking to our agent the other day, only a couple of days ago. We were very, very close to announcing a European and UK tour. So just letting you guys know that we're not just stringing you along. It is actually going to happen.
I have to preface that with everything happens on Hanson time.
Which means right on time.
We're like Gandalf. We don't show up early or late. We show up precisely when we mean to. So, anyway.
So let's talk about making this album. We just did an amazing walk today.
How many of you were on the walk? Pretty much everybody.
It's a very, very wet walk.
And you guys are awesome, by the way.
Yes, really, seriously, that was amazing today. And I say that because it's kind of the preemptive thing going into the making of this album was a lot of walking. On the Walk album, like we talked about on whatever day that was, Wednesday, we started something that was new, and it was a whole new sort of reason for us to get excited about being on tour and seeing you guys, and the Walk campaign filled our days and has continued to fill our days with a whole different set of tasks and priorities and goals. And interestingly, I think sometimes music reacts to exactly what you're doing, and you continue to build on something, and sometimes there's a contrasting effect. And in some ways, I think with all of those going on with the Walk, with the stories of going to Africa, and with all the things that we're doing, I think even just the general intensity of our running the label and all this stuff, I think while we were making that, doing that as tours and promoting it, the writing for the next music started. And, that's kind of the story, I guess, of each of these albums. Then we started writing more songs, guys. But it was...
Really?
Yeah. But
We wrote songs?
We're stating the obvious here. But the songs for this album really were started to be written on tour. And the last couple albums, from Underneath to The Walk, we started orienting more and more towards trying to capture, we talked about this, capturing the sound of what it is that we really sound like when we walk into a room and play. Not just like the brainchild that you have of the cool production sound, but actually, if we walked into a room and we sat down and we played this song, what would it sound like without adding any bells and whistles?
And particularly the three of us being, not just, because we obviously have bass and other keys and guitar that play with us, but it's about that dynamic that the three of us have, and very importantly, kind of where it feels the most comfortable and most, I guess you could say, most unique and indicative of exactly of the subtleties of what it is that we do.
One of the things that was important about the process of making the record was the actual process of recording it felt like we were going to have to get some space, because we don't have a lot of space in our lives. At least from whether it's touring or making records or running a label, or everybody's got families, everybody's very busy. And as the songs started to come together, there was definitely a definitive sound. Not as if every song sounded like a soul song, but we were definitely talking a little bit more about our first influences. It was a little less pop rock, it was a little bit more backbeat, a little bit more soulful, a little bit more like the records we always talk about in every interview we ever do. And it was almost like we were just kind of enjoying thinking about the next record a little more as fans, a little bit more, because we were doing even covers on the last tour, the previous tour for the Walks, that we hadn't done, song by like Sam and Dave, like Hold On I'm Coming, and or at least we were talking about those songs. And
Higher by Sly and the Family Stone.
And songs started sort of, come along that had a little more of that feel, like voice in the chorus had kind of that swing to it. And songs like Waiting for This, which were a little more straight to the vein. But I remember sitting on stage doing soundcheck for several different shows during the Walk period, where we were on one of our many 2-hour epic soundchecks. I can hear our crew guys going, "Yep," and working on songs. And the sound of just kind of going, "Hey, oh yeah, this is fun."
Well, the sound of that intense kind of verse on Waiting for This, where it's just very, very driving, and then the chorus opens up with the big guitars, and it's kind of...
I like big guitars.
Yeah. Or songs like Kiss Me When You Come Home, which I remember very clearly, staged very similar to this, probably actually bigger than this, but Taylor's sitting there kind of playing the kind of beginnings of that riff, which he had been playing kind of off and on for the previous days before that, and then Zach started to jam around. He wasn't moving.
Let me show you my boots. But
he just showed me his boots.
It is.
So anyway.
To be honest, there's a lot of little subtle stories in songs, and it's hard to sit around and describe songs, but there is interestingly, a lot of the times when you talk about albums that you make, sometimes you're thinking of something that you were inspired by, and it doesn't necessarily sound like that to somebody else. You're like, I was really inspired by Burt Bacharach, and then you come out with like an AC/DC riff. That happens where sometimes you channel an influence and you're inspired by a lyric or melody. But it seemed like with this album, it really was getting to a point where it sounded like it really sounded like the influences a little bit more. And honestly, every record we've tried, the last 3 albums, we kept trying to strip it. We're going to strip it back a little bit. We're going to strip it back a little bit more. We talked about that a lot. And it felt like this record was getting the closest to that, because a lot of the songs were with the least effort, because the songs were really defined by parts. They were more defined by a guitar riff. One of the songs...
I played very few chords on this record.
Yeah, we made sure... just play chords. Actually, you said, I hate playing chords. I want to play riffs. We're like, okay, well, here you go. Now you're going to have to remember the riffs.
And now I'm like, crap, I have to play riffs.
Well, it's a funny thing.
Can we play another chord song?
Coming from me, sounds kind of funny, but I think this record also, part of the reason why it's more riffs on guitar is because also I think the drums and the rhythm take a much more sort of, they're not the back seat, they're a lot more the front seat in a lot of these songs.
And the piano is a very driving force in the record too, which is very R&B.
It's a rhythmic instrument, by the way.
It's an instrument for frustrated drummers. Bang, 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 bang. You keep time all, constant.
Yeah, anyway, I think that's a big part of why the parts that the guitar tend to play are, it's sort of taking the place not necessarily of an organ or something like that, but it's playing more of sort of those counterpoints.
As another example, Jim.
And then the guitar part is basically the horn riff.
Anyway,
I'll show you an example of the rhythm.
the counterpoint.
But like like the way that song was so defined by the pocket of the rhythm.
Well, it was all about getting it right between you and Zach, as far as like what that drum beat is, because there's several different ways you can play the drums on a song like that, but most of them would never.
There's a couple little 2/4 bars in here and there, kind of little quick turnarounds. That song also reminds me of Voice in the Chorus was an early song in the record, and maybe my favorite song to play, because it's just so everybody is working off of each other in the band with the song. It's just like nothing, every part pushes the other.
It's actually kind of like Great Divide in a lot of ways, because Great Divide has this thing, which again is is subtle for those of you who are listening to it. But if you actually sit down and try and play it, the way that it goes is the guitar stays constant, but the piano pushes and pulls. So it goes and it pushes that groove, and the drums
speed up,
and the drums kind of pulsate. I use that word. Yes, pulsate with.
You heard it. You heard it. I'm pulsating. Wow.
One of the things I want to say about Voice in the Chorus, though, is there's nobody's ever accused Hanson Records of being negative. Our records, in general, have sort of an moral to the story. But what's funny about it is, if you guys, many of you know this because you read the lyrics, but almost always, our happy songs are like sad songs. Or they're like fighting songs. It's like Voice in the Chorus. It's like, just another voice. It's like, what's really saying is, fuck you! Excuse me if there are any kids in here. But it's like, there is excitement. It's like, honestly, it's like doing the walk in the sense of celebrating doing something. It's like, hey, we're here. Yeah, my feet are dirty. It's raining. Crap. But we're doing it. And I don't, honestly, there's very, very few songs of ours that are just straight up, I'm really happy. I'm really happy. Even Waiting for This is like, it's about pushing past your comfort zone. It's like, I know you've been dying to cross over, so do it. And Voice in the Chorus is...
And actually telling someone to do it, not even necessarily, you're actually like pushing the person to do it.
And kind of sort of, it's sometimes you're writing to yourself, and sometimes you're writing to other people, and sometimes it's a mix. But that's what makes songs, at least for me, that's what makes songs great, is that they can mean different things to different people. And sometimes you write a song, it's like, I'm really mad about this right now. And then it becomes like, oh, I fixed it. I'm not mad anymore. Crap. And now I got to figure out how to say that in a way that goes past me just being frustrated with something, and make that song that started off as like a venting song into a story song. And the whole album, Shout It Out, is about sort of, in many ways, it's about coming to terms with the fact that you've got to shout it out. It's like coming to terms with what it is you are. The whole theme of the record is, all the white backdrops and then bright colors. It's sort of like, what are you without color? Just throw some paint on the wall. Just forget about it. You're yellow. Just throw it against the wall. Throw down some red. Throw down some blue. Just go with it. You're not going to change your stripes. So be, go big or go home, as they say in NASCAR. And in a lot of ways, like our sound and what we do on records.
Me, I'm a Bengal tiger. It's just sort of my thing,
That was actually kind of that was like an Owen Wilson kind of feeling. I don't know why it just made me think of that. I'm a Bengal tiger. Bengal tiger.
Gotta be a little more nasal.
Bengal tiger, So, not to be like too fruity about it, but it is. That's the album, the theme of the album, and there's also interestingly, you think about different scenarios that could go in. I don't think this was very conscious, but it's definitely an album that is written from three guys that are in relationships versus wanting to be in relationships. I think about songs like...
We didn't realize that until the record was...
Yeah, I was like, Kiss Me When You Come Home is not about... there's a home somewhere, so fine. Or even, I'm just thinking about even love songs, that are... Oh, the love songs that are throughout the record.
Well, amongst other things, I've been thinking about something's about telling a girl off or like fooling around, so clearly you were in a relationship.
There was a broken home, but
It's a little bit of who's making love to your old lady. Making love.
You guys don't know that song.
I'm making love.
That's a classic. Classic.
If I remember correctly, that's by Johnny Taylor. It was released in 1968.
Encyclopedia over here. So there's, ultimately, this album has a lot less, let me tell you something, because time has not passed yet. Thankfully, it's new. It's still, it's been out for a little while, but it's relatively new, and the stories are yet to be told. But I think we should talk about making the record and then take some questions.
Right.
And one of the things that we did do to capture that was
we went to El Paso, Texas.
We needed to find some isolation, and so we had this good batch of songs which had this feeling to them. We rehearsed them and sat in a room and really hammered out arrangements. And we found a studio which is the largest live-in studio in the world. It's on 2,000 acres of groves of pecans. And it's basically in Mexico. You can actually hit Mexico with a rock. If you got a good arm.
You really can.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
You just got to be careful if you throw that rock that hit a Mexican.
Well, you could hit.
You'd be in trouble.
Let's
just hit a guy with a rock. Oh crap!
Yeah, it's actually across the way from.
And then the then the FBI has to get involved because it was across the border.
Wow, we digress. We made the record there because, like we said, we wanted to be able to wake up every day. Literally, phones didn't work. You actually had to turn your phones off because it thought you were in Mexico.
Yeah.
Your phone's like, oh, you're in Mexico! And you're like, no.
My ringtone changed.
Yeah, the roaming charges were insane.
It couldn't decide. So we had the benefit of just literally just zoning out, and for a time in all of our lives where it's hard to just go shut down and go, okay, 100% artist. We spent the first 2 solid weeks just waking up, and pretty much every day we would record a song, finish a song.
But most importantly, we started it with burritos.
Yeah. The theme of we jokingly called it the burrito sessions because there was the cook that was at the studio. They were making Mexican breakfast burritos every day. Oh, so good.
It was like
dangerous though. Zach had to be let out of the studio several times. Kicked out of the studio
because he was being mean.
Gosh. But
to our noses.
When you're on, in a grove, a pecan farm, you have to, dust the crops.
Every girl in here was like, ew.
These kids were so cute until they started making flashes.
It's just a sign that the factory's working, kids.
So clearly it's the last night because we're just like, hey, let's tell farting stories. What other things can we say about music before we completely fall apart?
I was gonna hold on. Before you talk more about something I did that made you smell. Well, I thought thinking about something might be a particularly good one because it sort of has a history that some of you may know and some of you may not know. Thinking about something was started during the walk, and it was a joke song. It wasn't intended to ever be completed.
Would you say it was a joke song?
It started off as a joke song. Yeah, we were sitting on the
kind of a joke.
I've been thinking about something other than you.
We were working on another song that.
Yeah, it was very like 50s. Like
We were sitting on the porch outside while we were working on the walk, and kind of brain blocked, and then we started singing kind of doo-wop-y, and that song started coming out. And it was on a It was on the Take the Walk podcast. There was a little piece of it.
I think it's on episode 2.
Oh, wow.
See what I'm saying? It's amazing. I think it was 37 seconds.
We're gonna put him up against that robot on Jeopardy. It's gonna be, but only Hanson
on
facts.
Jeopardy, baby.
So you think about something that stuck around obviously for a while. It was one of those things that we all knew was this joke song, but we all really liked it.
We all knew it was kind of catchy. It had a beat and you could dance to
It
it.
was sort of not that it's the same song at all, but the same way Bop was sort of like, oh, that didn't work, but we kept singing it every once in a while.
You remember it? It definitely not.
It evolved. Yeah, no, it evolved very similarly because the pocket of it changed slightly.
Has anybody here used GarageBand on their Mac computer? So the way that thinking about something partly turned into a real song was somebody was, I'm not sure whether it was you or Tabe. It was and they turned on one of the Motown loops. Ding 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 ding.
It's either 9 or 17. I don't know.
I was trying to prove something.
And it was sort of like,
Because it had been straighter before.
oh yeah, it was much straighter. It was. I don't want to sing it straight because I don't like it straight anymore, but I think it was sort of the white guy version, and then it became sort of like, oh wait, maybe it's I told you, bitch. Maybe that's what the song became.
It had that little swing to and yeah, then it became all the verses and stuff started happening.
I also have an interesting story about that, which was we recorded the record actually at the beginning of 2009, and then toured at the end of 2009, and also continued to record it in 2010. Before the record was done.
Very beginning
of 2010. But when we toured for about, 5.5, 6 weeks in the U.S., I remember taking a walk, one of our walks, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and a girl walked up to me, and we've already recorded Thinking About Something, and she goes, there's this song on like episode 2 of the podcast. And it's like, she's like, that's such a great song. You guys are going to record that? And I'm like,
you've been stalking us. Why have you been sitting in our bedroom?
No, but I kind of like smirked in my mind, and I was like, you never know what could happen. You never know. And so I know that there is some girl in Wisconsin that got the record and was like, oh my God, they did it!
What is smirking in your mind?
You can imagine his mind is like weird, so it's kind of squeezes a little bit. The other thing about that song particularly, again, there's so many little stories, but Thinking About Something really was recorded off the floor. We probably care more about that than you guys do. All that matters really is that it sounds good in the end, but it was the song is basically a take. Aside from the horn section,
it's live.
The lead vocal, the harmonies are done later, and we added like the B3 and some claps.
The Jack Daniels bottle was done after we finished the Jack Daniels bottle.
There's a Jack Daniels overdub. Ding, 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 ding. It sounds like a good tone. You have to finish the whole bottle first. So.
Everything sounds good at that point.
This sounds great, guys.
I've been thinking about something.
And it's sleeping.
Ike's over in the pool of his own vomit in the corner of the room, playing guitar. It's like, yes, I love this song.
It's a great idea, guys.
But the song, was in a... Sorry, you guys, it's the last song. It was in the room, and that doesn't... that's hard to get to happen, especially when these days you have so many options to fix it and change it, and we're really...
And auto-tune, just given certain artists' careers, I'm not going to say which one.
Auto-tune is responsible for at least half of what's on the radio right now in the whole world.
Exactly.
And so to actually be able to, for us being really picky, to be happy enough with it, to be like, oh, that's got it done, was pretty amazing, because we were like, okay, we should just step away.
And obviously that's why Taylor yells, "To the bridge!"
In the middle of the song, that's why you hear that in this going into the bridge section, because that was the
And we were like,
us sitting here playing it. And a lot of times you do what's called a guide vocal, where you'll sing while you're recording, and that's what that was.
and so
Don't forget the bridge.
we left it in. We left it in. And the other thing that's important about that too is there were the drum sound. This happened a lot throughout the Shout It Out record. There was a grand piano at one end of the 3,000 square foot giant room, and then there were the drums on the other end. And we had to leave, in many cases, the piano mics on. We couldn't mute them until the piano came in, because on songs like Kiss Me When You Come Home, the way that those drums sound,
You heard the drums in the
is
piano
because you hear the reverberating piano strings and the mics on the piano. And also, very importantly, the way that Think About Something sounds is because of the lead, is because of the guide vocal that Taylor had in front of him. When
You can hear the Wurlitzer sound is partly affected by the sound of the vocal mic. Is what you're saying.
Well, and also the drum sound as well, because there was bleed into that microphone as well. And we didn't notice that until we were mixing it. We were mixing it and we're like, that drum sounds weird. Why doesn't it sound as awesome as it did before? And then you started unmuting stuff. And we're like, okay, what do we have muted? What's going on here? Oh, the vocal. Keep it on. So.
We're kind of getting geeky for you guys, sorry. They're like, what are you talking?
They're like, we don't care.
Well, there was sort of 3 stages to Shout It Out, because we started off in El Paso at this big studio for 2 weeks, and we came out with 13 songs that were 80% finished, 70 or 80% finished, and then we spent about a month or 2 really finishing those, just detailing everything and doing real lead harmonies and shaker parts and doubling guitars and so or in many cases doing any guitars, because a bunch of the songs I was playing bass on, right. So there were not necessarily guitar parts on half the record. And sort of we finished and we took that and we went out on tour. And we put out this stand-up EP. We
actually mixed the record.
We finished the record completely. There's a mixed version of Shout It Out that is different, slightly different songs, and
no horn arrangements.
No, you can't have it.
And no Give a Little. And Give a Little of Me, Myself, and I.
It basically called Shout It Out, Not As Good. The Not As Good sessions. And basically, once we finished that tour, there was sort of this creeping feeling that no one really wanted to admit. That was sort of like, it's not good enough, is it? And so it's not an awe. It's just sort of like,
that's what you do.
That's our job.
Well, and the part of it was that from the beginning we talked about doing horn arrangements, and we decided about halfway through that we no, this sounds great. Sort of trying to not overproduce it. And we mixed it that summer and went on tour with the plans to put it out in 2010, initially. And after we finished the tour, it was from playing it live, from hearing the songs, from stepping away, it was obvious that we needed to do the last thing we'd intended to in the first place and just go ahead and do it all the way. And there's several people that had done horn arrangements for us in the past, and the number one was Jerry Hay, who's known for Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. And sort of his work that he did with arrangements, he would say, okay, Jerry, write the horns. And he wrote little things like, that one? It's there's a little album called Thriller. So we called him up and, he understood how to arrange horns for this album.
Can you just go, ba-na, ba-na?
Will that make this album sell 25 million copies?
Well, can you do that kind of part for us? Okay, cool, thanks. Bye.
But we a couple things. One was the horn arrangements, and partly the horn arrangements were driven by knowing that the record had this sound, and it was almost like we wanted the horn arrangements to make this big exclamation point at the end to anybody that listened that said, no, you're not just thinking it sort of has that sound, it really does sound a little retro, sound a little bit like a 1970s record or a 60s record. And
we really should have put the exclamation point.
It really sounds like that. But the other thing was the song, there were 2 other songs. One was a song called Give a Little. and we felt like we needed that final poignant statement, that quiet song. And the song, Me, Myself, and I had been around for years, but hadn't been totally finished.
Underneath?
Yeah, it was started during the Underneath album,
Yeah, sometime around 2002, right?
One of the many songs that was started then.
Was it maybe even 2001, actually?
I don't know, encyclopedia. I don't know. I was there, but it's a blur.
I just know it was around for a while, and we were playing it on the Underneath acoustic tour. So it was,
there was a lot of stuff going on. I don't know. Anyway, it was around then. But it just felt like there was that last 10%, and the 10, that last 10% is the difference between good and great. At least for us, we felt like it was. And the other thing was we wanted to change up some of the parts that we don't on the bass, and we called in Bob Babbitt, who is a living legend, somebody that won't, who knows, a few years from now may not be around, but played on a lot of the records we talk about. And there's something subtle when you're building a record. It's just like doing a painting. Sometimes that one dot here or there, that one line, totally changes it. And here's a guy who was, I think he was in Zurich recording the new Phil Collins album. And literally,
Phil Collins, Motown.
We're like, we want you to come record this next week. He's like, that's great, I'm in Zurich. And he got on a plane.
Actually, he just so happened to be getting back the day before we needed him in LA. So,
but there's something so cool about being a young band, and we've always enjoyed working with people of another generation because you get sort of a better read on whether it's any good, and to sit with guys that have made countless records and toured the world and done this, like Jerry, who's done arrangements for icons, and like Bob, who is a living legend. It's so amazing to be able to connect that to what you're doing and try and meld them together.
Little Bob Babbitt anecdote, he was on tour with Stevie Wonder when he was a little Stevie Wonder. So before he was in his 20s.
And when Stevie Wonder wanted to try and drive the van.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently he's notorious for doing that.
And he did drive the van.
And everyone
I can drive! No, you can't! No, don't know if you got the memo, but you're blind!
We're all gonna die!
So Bob lived through it, thankfully. Anyway, sorry you guys. We apologize. It's a good thing we make music because we would not be able to make a career out of this. So the album, like Zach said, 3 stages. The first stage being the recording, second stage being the overdubs and the mixing, and the last one being going back and going out to one of the best, kind of most iconic studios in the world, a little studio called Sunset Sound in Hollywood, and sitting in those rooms and tracking the horn section. And it was so clear when we laid down Give a Little and we did those horns, it was just, it was so obvious that was meant to be. You could just, that extra, like I said, extra 10%.
You just start getting giddy when you
get very excited.
Ooh, 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 this is our record, ooh!
I'm not sure.
He did that, and then we kicked him out. We said,
monkeys stay home. Then I'm not sure if it will always remain to be true.
You guys could so not be in a band with us. You're like, oh.
Hanson, the puppy dog sessions. I don't know if it will always remain to be true, but I think we realized when we got to Sunset Sound that there was a little superstition in all of us that if we hadn't recorded something in Los Angeles, then the record wasn't over.
We pretty much made, there's been some element of LA in every record. Yeah. And there's just a lot of great studios there, and we've made a lot of music there, Let me think about this. So the record was finally done at that point. And we were in a cramp because we had expected and planned and promised that the record was going to be done. And really from there, you guys, what happened next. I mean, the album, Thinking About Something was the front runner as the first single in the US for a lot of reasons because, and we thought we'd be able to get it out sooner everywhere at the time, but because it made a statement about the record. All the stuff we talked about, all of the old school music and the idea of doing the Blues Brothers video, and I know there's probably a few people here that even came to that shoot. I don't know if there's some. There's one. So two. There's two. There were some. I know there was a couple. But when we did the Thing About Something video, and our obviously bad humor, we fell in love with the Blues Brothers video when we were kids, the movie. And so that idea of creating that Blues Brothers video was to try and make a statement about the album. You know, it connects with sort of the release of the album, the sound of the album, and created something that was sort of inviting to people. And really the whole story of this entire project, and will continue through this year, is to, you know, kind of not be afraid to shout it out. You know, make some noise, do what you do. That's what we've been doing long enough to have 5 albums and get to have fans that have traveled from around to see it. And we're not going anywhere. So
with that being said, I think it's time to take a few questions. How about people?
Isaac's gonna take a question. We'll trade off picking, so we'll run away.
So all stars.
Sorry.
To achieve a certain sound. And are
Are you talking about me specifically? Oh, in general.
That's a great. We don't usually pick albums based on register. That's
Just to make sure everybody in the back heard, she's asking about the keys of this record, and she's saying that she thinks in general Shout It Out sounds like it's higher than some of our other records.
I think that's more just from the way the melodies are written. I would imagine that there will be other songs that are a little bit more low, you know, and capture that slightly more sultry sound, I guess.
But in general, we have pretty high voices. So, you know,
both Taylor and Zach are proper tenors.
And yes, Ike will sing multiple lead songs probably on the next record. That's the way it goes. And then
I was actually really surprised by that.
Ike brings in the low.
even Isaac isn't very low and he's a lyric baritone, which basically
For
means
male voices, we're all kind of
he's a high baritone.
compared to the other records?
Oh, but compared to like Underneath and The Walk and things like that.
It's really just the songwriting. It's the sound of the songs. I mean, where a melody of a song lands is partly what key you put it in. Sometimes it just fits better, and it's partly also the sound of the record is probably making you feel like it's higher.
I haven't examined it. It may be slightly higher.
Personally, I tend to enjoy hearing people sing on the top end of their range because I think it naturally has a certain amount of emotion in it that isn't there when you're singing in the really easy to sing part of your vocal cords. So in general, I think never going to purpose to sing in sort of somewhere that is not the most intense.
Zach won't, but I will.
Emotional. Zach's gonna be like, here's my.
See, I'm the guy who likes putting the bass parts on. He's like,
What? That's a good question. You wanna pick one?
Sure. Okay. You're in the 505 shirt right here.
Lyrics or melody first is the question. It's different. Every song's. I mean, for me, I write. It goes every way. Sometimes it's melody, and sometimes it really is inspired by lyrics, and sometimes songs are inspired by the sort of playing together.